And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers along with Bob Sellers. President Biden canceling deployment of 2 U.S. warplanes from the Black Sea amid Russia's troop buildup there. Another 30,000 Russian troops are gathering along the border with Ukraine. All of this coming after the Kremlin warned the U.S. to stay away for their own good. Now, on top of that, China flew 15 warplanes, including a dozen fighters, into Taiwan's airspace as signs mount of a looming invasion. We're waiting for President Biden, to make some remarks on Russia shortly, and we are monitoring that for you. And we will carry it for you live, or at least an element of it. But is he capable of handling all of the growing tensions between these countries? And what should his strategy be? Nate, I'll start with you this time, because it's coming at this administration from all fronts, and it seems to have been coming since day one.
That's right. I mean, look, if coronavirus taught us one thing, is that we are way too dependent on countries like China, our geopolitical enemies. This is something that President Trump got absolutely right. Decades of failed policies from both Democratic and Republican administrations has made us way too dependent on the country that is our enemy and will continue to be our enemy in the future. There's things we can do to claw our way back. We can repatriate manufacturing, we can fix our supply chains. On long-term issues like climate change, we can lead the way on clean energy innovation and green tech rather than letting China eat our lunch. But it's very unclear whether or not the Biden administration has what it takes and is actually invested in thinking about that project in those terms like the Trump administration was.
Stacey, all of this also coming on the heels and what we expect the president to be speaking about shortly, the sanctions that he imposed against Russia today, 35 individuals and entities due to what they say was election interference and also hacking here in this country.
So we know that sanctions work. I was just reading a report that I'll cover tonight on my program about how Iran was driven almost to the brink of bankruptcy through the sanctions that were leveled from the Trump administration. Basically, they ate through all of their reserves. They were very close to teeter-tottering on insolvency. And so sanctions do work. But we're talking about a man who is currently obsessed with packing the court, making D.C. a 51st state so that they can secure the Senate, and other kinds of, they're like ideological battles that he wants to have with half of the country, as opposed to securing the border and moving ahead on modernizing parts of our military that still need work in order to deal with an ascendant China. And they have Russia in their back pocket. Russia and China are geopolitical allies against the United States. And the posturing from China towards us when they say we are no longer less than you, we are your equal, that's pretty amazing stuff. And Biden seems completely oblivious to it because of his obsessions run towards the ideological as opposed to the presidential.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, one of the other things that stood out to me in this report that came out about the sanctions that were being imposed about Russia, U.S. intel also having low to moderate confidence that Russia offered bounties on American troops to the Taliban in Afghanistan. So that's a switch from a headline that we saw during the Trump administration.
Well, all the headlines have seemed to switch from what we had seen during the Trump administration. And right now, I think that China and Russia do not see President Biden as a true adversary. They see him as someone who is beneath them. And, to extrapolate on Stacey's point, wow, we have 19 genders and as many pronouns as you can manage, but do we have border security? No. Do we have international relations that are protecting us as Americans? Absolutely not. I've extensively studied China, by the way, and there's a great book called The 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pillsbury, who's in Washington forever. China is not our friend. It is their goal to take over as a world superpower. This is very well laid out. They're not going to do it with bombs and guns. They are going to do it with infiltration and deceit. And we are so close to that being a reality. They've already surpassed us economically. They really did bring the coronavirus here, whether you like to believe that or not. Yet no one in our current Democrat administration is willing to believe that. We sit here and make excuses for China. But no, we need to take them on because they are not our friend. They are not a developing nation. They are a threat to democracy. They want to see us fail. They want to be the world superpower, and they are communist. Communism doesn't work.
So, Bob, what about that? How do we take on China in the best way possible? And what should we do about Russia and what they're doing right now?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer to those. They are hard questions to answer, but I think a lot of it has to do with economic sanctions. But at a certain point, it's also going to have to do with military power, showing we're willing to use it if necessary. And that's going to be a hard decision to make against China. I think it's a little easier against Russia, but it doesn't look like we're ready to make that over in Ukraine. But I do think we have to put up a fight. I think what worries me also is it seems like there's a relationship going on between Russia and China.
Yes.
I'm guessing there's been a conversation about what do you want and what do you want? Well, we know that Putin wants in the interim, in the intermediate short term, more of Ukraine. And so we know that China wants Taiwan in the short term. I think just to test to see what Joe Biden would do. What if they go at those at the same time? That's kind of a scary prospect. I'm not sure we're prepared to respond to it.
Yeah, I don't think that we're prepared to respond to it. And I think we showed our hand by turning around, making a U-turn with the U.S. warships that were headed to the Black Sea between Turkey and the United States. That reversal, I think, showed and tipped our hand to Putin. What do you think, Stacey? I think I heard you agreeing.
Yeah, I got to tell you, so he's made a number of missteps. First of all, the Chinese just unveiled this super submarine.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest submarine ever built in the history of subs. We don't have a corresponding sub to unveil. Militarily, we are not advancing at the same rate that the Chinese are. And it's not our military's fault. It's the Biden administration and the directional shift of the military leadership. So we're not ready. We're not there.
Yeah, also, I just wanted to throw in, as I understand it, Stacey, and you can back this up or challenge it, but I understand they have the technology that they have nuclear warheads, that anti-ballistic missiles that we count on to protect us. They have warheads, apparently, that resist against those and still would be effective. In other words, we wouldn't be able to shoot down their nuclear missiles.
Apparently, that is the case. And so I've always thought of us as being the most advanced. We certainly spend the most money. Yeah. But because of our constant fighting with infighting, we're unable to compete with them anymore. It's so sad to me because we have everything that we need, but we can't do it.
Yeah. I think one of the other concerns is teaming up Russia and China, Bob, as you were saying, when it comes to Iran. That's also something that we need to be watching.
That's true. Yeah. I feel like that we're getting outmaneuvered.
Yeah, exactly.